Hey, good morning everybody. Welcome back to the 4x2 Wagon Family Garage. Today I was going to work on fixing the squeaky noise in front of my Range Rover, the L322. This was going to take me about 15 minutes to do. Then I thought, you know what, let me just put a quick video for you guys because this is something that anybody can do. It's a very simple job. So I got a major squeaky noise going on when I hit a bump, pothole, anything like that. Jumping up, getting up on a curb in my driveway, hear a little clunking sound. And basically what's happening here is my ball joint is worn out. Also my upper control arm is worn out. Sometimes it's just one or maybe the other, but in this case if you guys can replace the ball joint, it's just best to replace the control arm as well, because by that point, if you have the original ball joint, I'm pretty sure your bushing on your control arm is also worn out. And I'll show you guys what it looks like, what a worn bushing and ball joint looks like. So to do that, you don't even need a ball joint press on these things. These are pretty simple. Unlike my Jeep, you need a press and all that, and it can be, can be complicated if you've never done that before. But on a Range Rover, it's pretty simple. So let me just show you guys what I've done so far. I've taken some of this stuff off already, so I'm just gonna walk you through how to remove it and show you guys how I'm putting it back together. All right, so let's get started. I went ahead and removed my upper control arm that goes from here to the back of the knuckle. It looks basically looks like this. Okay, and the way you can tell if your bushing is worn out on your control arm is you can see daylight through there. There shouldn't be any daylight. Can you guys see that? Here, let me go over here. You guys can see light through my bushing. See that? All right, so that's a good sign of your your bushing is definitely worn out. And to remove this thing, all you need to do is, number one, take any type of penetrating oil, any kind of oil like WD-40. If you don't have PB Blaster, WD-40 works great. And basically all you want to do is, let me turn up the ISO here so you guys can see. Okay, and this is the ball joint right here. And this is where your control arm sits, underneath this ball joint. What you want to do is just spray with the penetrating oil, WD-40, PB Blaster, whatever you have. Spray quite a bit around this ball joint area where it connects to the control arm, and let it sit for a good half an hour, and then bang with a hammer to strike and get the rust off or loose, and then spray again and let it sit for half an hour. Okay, and then what you're going to do is get yourself about a 5-pound sledgehammer and basically bang it. You're going to bang at the bottom of the control arm right here. You just bang it, tap it maybe 4 or 5 times, and the thing will just knock right off. So it's simple as that. Or if you guys want to get a press to pry it off, you guys can do that. You guys can rent it at O'Reilly. But like I said, if you guys are going to be replacing this part and the ball joint anyways, no sense going through that extra process. Just bang it, it'll come right off. There are basically these screws. These are torque bit screws that sits underneath the actual ball joint itself, and we'll get more into that once we install this. But you'll need a T50 torque bit screw to take this thing off. Okay, and they just sit right at the bottom of this ball joint. They come right off. And then again, once you get to this point, and then before you take this ball joint off, you want to again spray this penetrating oil on top of this ball joint as much as you can. Tap it a little bit to shock if there's any kind of rust in there at all. But this shouldn't be too difficult to come off. This thing should come off easily, is because it's not pressed in. So let's go ahead and get started here. And I've already sprayed this thing last night, so this thing should come right off anyways. I'm just going to use this 3/8 extension here. I don't need to bang it too hard, I don't think. So it's kind of early in the morning, so I got my rubber mallet. Hopefully it's going to work. Normally I just use my 5-pound sledgehammer. Oh, there it comes. Yeah, see that? I barely tapped it. All right. So you can see here, let me focus in a little bit. You can tell when a ball joint is worn out is you got a lot of grease coming out. You can see the boot itself is actually torn. This boot is a little bit torn on the top, and there's grease coming out of here. Okay, this is the original OE Range Rover bushing, or ball joint, excuse me, and this is a Moog. Moog makes a pretty good product. There are quite a few options out there. I like the Moogs is because, I don't know, they just felt really good on other vehicles I put these Moogs on. They look pretty much close to OE, and also most importantly is the ball joint themselves. They just move really good. They just feel good. You know, because that's how you know if a ball joint is feeling good, is just, if you wiggle it like this. If it's worn out, you might hear some clunking sound and things like that. This one feels pretty smooth actually, and this is a brand new Moog. I'll leave all the part numbers down below, and this thing feels really solid and smooth. It's got a nice boot on here. This thing is full of grease, which I like. You see a lot of ball joints that are made in China. They tend to look flat. They look like there's no grease in here, but I can feel those grease moving around inside this boot. That's nice. So yeah, these Moogs are, at least this part right here is made in Italy and not made in China. So just be careful when you guys are buying stuff from China. You know, you use it at your own risk. And these Moogs I've had really good success for all my other rigs. All right, so just do a quick comparison of the new and the old. Make sure it looks, you know, as you would expect, and everything lines up, and it certainly does. And then installing it literally takes just a few minutes. Like I said, you don't need to press this thing in there. It should fit right inside. Let me grab a rag and clean inside of that hole where this ball joint just came out. So to get this thing in here, it's really simple. You got these two holes on each side of the ball joint, and that's where these screws go into. You just want to line it up, and it's pretty self-explanatory. And it's not going to slide right in there, so just get it close. And then the trick here is once you get it up in there about halfway, and that's as far as you're going to be able to press it in there, then the rest of the way you're just going to thread these screws in there. Okay, just get it started by hand. And you're going to basically screw it in there one side at a time. Okay, there we go. Look at the other side again. And when you're driving these screws in, you want to make sure you do each side a little turn at a time. And right now I'm doing it with my hands. Okay, until I can't go any further. Because one thing you don't want to do is start turning this thing, and this thing kind of, you know, turns kittywampus on you, or a little cockeyed. And if you do it with your hands, each side, you should be able to drive it in most of the way. Okay, right there. Now I'm going to get my ratchet out and start turning it with the ratchet. And just turn it lightly until it stops, and then go to the other side. Okay, and then we're going to torque this down just a little bit. Okay, there we go. And let me get the nut on the back end. A quick pro tip. So once you get to this point, you got your ball joint hooked up, your control arm, upper control arm bolt in there, and now you're trying to get this the bottom of the control arm onto your ball joint. See, it's just not going to go in there. So what you can do is turn the car on, and then turn the steering wheel to the driver's side all the way. So let me go do that real quick. Now let's bring this arm back up in here, and now you can see how it's going to fit in there just perfect. Okay, So what you're gonna need is an Allen wrench, and this is basically to hold that the ball joint inside from spinning. You see here, there we go. Then once you get this nut on there snug, the ball joint inside this ball joint will stop spinning, and then you can torque it down to 85 foot-pounds. Okay, let's give that a try. There we go. There we go. Alright guys, so one of the last things you want to do is get this upper bolt on the control arm torqued down to 185 foot-pounds. So what you want to do, and this is a really important step here, is to make sure that you raise your suspension up to about 20 inches from the middle of your wheel well to the center of your axle. Make sure you measure that to about 20 inches, and to do that you need to raise up your shocks or your whole axle, if you will, and I'll show you guys that in just a little bit. The reason why you want to do that is because you want to make sure that there's no bind on this bushing, and one of the biggest premature wear and tear on your bushing is that when the shops or you guys are maybe installing these new control arms, for example, they all generally have these type of bushings. You torque it down while your truck or your Rover is up in the air. Then when you bring it down, you may not realize this, but your bushing is at its full compression, or it's got a pretty tight bind in the bushing, so you tend to wear out this bushing prematurely. When you're driving down the road, you want this bushing to have zero bind in the bushing. You want it to be basically relaxed, and when this bushing should activate or work is when your suspension is going up and down, you hit a pothole, going over bumps and things like that. And the purpose of this bushing is to help, one, dampen the vibration, and then two, helps keeps your wheel, your tire on the road, because as this wheel goes up and down like this, the bushing inside here is working against the wheel to keep your control arm and your front axle planted to the ground as much as possible. So if you tighten this thing up while your Rover's up in the air and you bring it back down, it's not going to work efficiently at all, because it's going to be fully compressed or all bounded up. Does that make sense? All right. I'm at about 24 inches. You can do it here on the rotor if you like. The rotor's not going to break. It's pretty strong. Up to you. Okay, we're at 21 and a half. Okay, so I am pretty much there. All right, just like that. Alright guys, so we just got back from snow wheeling, and we definitely fixed that clunking sound on the driver's side with the control arm and the ball joint replacement. But while we're up on the mountain and bouncing around in the snow, we also heard some clunking sound up here on the passenger side. So that's what we're going to work on this week, is getting that fixed up, and just want to share this information with you guys. You know, it's not that complicated to replace the control arm and the ball joint, and if you can do one, you should do the other. So I hope this video was helpful, and love to hear your thoughts or comments. Leave it down below, and until next time, we'll see you guys in the next video, and God bless and be safe out there in the COVID world.